Good day everyone. My name is Jehana S. Mangcao and I am going to report about the introduction of Chapter 8 NOLI TANGERE 1887 up to the one-fourth of synopsis of the NOLI TANGERE. I hope you guys will understand my report. To start with, Dr. Jose Rizal emphasized that "Noli me tangere" signified "do not touch me." The book contains things of which no one among ourselves has spoken up to the present. They are so delicate that they cannot be touched by anybody. I have endeavored to answer the calumnies which for centuries had been heaped on us and our country. I have described the social condition, the life, our beliefs, our hopes, our desires, our grievances, our grief. The fact I narrate are all true and they actually happened. I can prove them, said by Dr. Jose Rizal. The passage directly points out that Noli Me Tangere exposes the hidden truth and injustices in Philippine society under Spanish rule. Rizal wrote it to defend Filipinos against false accusations, describe their real social conditions, and reveal actual events that he could prove true. During the gloomy winter months in Berlin, Rizal was famished, sick, and despondent. But such physical discomforts could not chain his indomitable spirit to intellectual captivity. Notwithstanding his empty stomach, his painful coughing, and his despairing spirit, he continued writing his first novel. By the flickering light of his petroleum lamp, he wrote on page by page. Through the opaque window panes, he saw the snowflakes getting thicker and thicker, the howling winter wind sweeping the snowbound city. Jarred his windows and come hooting down the chimney, he wrote on, until the early hours of dawn. At long last, he finished the novel on February 21, 1887. It was the Noli Me Tangere, his first novel. Now, let's discuss about the idea of writing a novel on Philippines. His reading of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, which portrays the brutalities of American slave owners and the pathetic conditions of the unfortunate Negro slaves, inspired Dr. Rizal to prepare a novel on the Philippines. He was then a student in the Central University of Madrid. So in a reunion of Filipinos in the house of the Paternos in Madrid on January 2, 1884, Rizal proposed the writing of a novel about the Philippines by a group of Filipinos. His proposal was anonymously approved by those present, among whom were the Paternos Pedro, Maximo, and Antonio, Graciano Lopez Jaina, Evaristo Aguirre, Eduardo Delete, Julio Llorente, and Valentin Ventura. Unfortunately, Rizal's project did not materialize. These compatriots were expected to collaborate on the novel did not wrote anything. The novel was designed to cover all phases of Philippine life. However, almost everybody wanted to write on women. Rizal was disgusted at such flippancy. He was more disgusted to see that his companions, instead of working seriously on the novel, wasted their time gambling or flirting with Spanish girls. Undaunted by his friends' indifference, he determined to write the novel alone. Moving on to the writing of the Noli. Towards the end of 1884, Rizal began writing the novel in Madrid and finished about one half of it. When he went to Paris in 1885, after completing his studies in the Universidad Central de Madrid, he continued writing the novel, finishing one half of the second half. He wrote the last fourth of the novel in Germany. During the dark days of December 1886, while his spirit was at its lowest ebb, he almost threw the manuscript into the fire. The novel was almost finished then. He was desperately despondent because he saw no hope of having it published, for he was utterly penniless. Thus he wrote to his friend Fernando Canon: I did not believe that the Noli Me Tangere would ever be published when I was in Berlin. Heartbroken, weakened, and discouraged from hunger and deprivation, I was on the point of throwing my work into the fire as a thing accursed and fit only to die. In mid-December, a telegram from Barcelona arrived. It was sent by Dr. Maximo Viola, informing Rizal of his coming visit to Berlin. The message revived the author's hope. His friend Viola, a son of a rich family of San Miguel, Bulacan, would surely lend him the money for the publication of the novel. Now, we are going to the most heartwarming part: the man who saved the Noli. Indeed, Viola was a godsend. Without him, the Noli would most likely never appear in print. The meeting between Viola and Rizal in Berlin was a joyous one. Viola, loaded with money, came to Berlin to invite Rizal to join him on a tour of Europe. When he learned of Rizal's predicament, he kindly agreed to postpone the tour and instead advance some money so that the novel could be printed. The first edition of the Noli was printed in Berlin in 1887. The cost of printing was 300 pesos, advanced by Viola for 2,000 copies. In token of his appreciation and gratitude, Rizal gave to Viola the galley proofs of the Noli, carefully rolled around the pen that he used in writing the novel, and the first copy to come off the press with a dedicatory autograph as follows: To my dear friend Maximo Viola, the first to read and appreciate my work. Jose Rizal, March 29, 1887, Berlin. So this date, March 29, 1887, is a significant date, for it was the date when the Noli Me Tangere came off the press. A new classic was thus born in Philippine literature. A book which caused a great stir in its times and which still a stirring book at the present time. Now, let's move on to the title of the novel. So the title, Noli Me Tangere, is a Latin phrase which means touch me not. It is not originally conceived by Rizal, for he admitted taking it from the Bible. Rizal, writing to Felix R. Hidalgo in French in March 1887, said, Noli Me Tangere, words taken from the Gospel of St. Luke, signify, do not touch me. In citing the biblical source, Rizal made a mistake. It should be the Gospel of St. John, chapter 20, verses 13 to 17. According to St. John, on the first Easter Sunday, Saint Mary Magdalene visited the Holy Sepulchre, and to her our Lord Jesus, just arisen from the dead, said, Touch me not, I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren, and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father, and your Father, and to my God, and your God. In other words, Jesus tells Mary Magdalene not to touch him because he has not yet ascended to God. Instead, he asked her to tell his disciples that he will soon return to the Father. So to continue the discussion, now let's discuss about the author's dedication. Rizal dedicated the Noli Me Tangere to the Philippines. To my country, he said. His dedication runs as follows. Recorded in the history of human sufferings is a cancer, so malignant a character that the least touch irritates it and awakens in it the sharpest pains. Thus, how many times, when in the midst of modern civilization, I have wished to call thee before me, now to accompany me in memories, now to compare thee with other countries, hath thy dear image presented itself, showing social cancer like to that other, desiring thy welfare, which is our own, and seeking the best treatments, I will do with thee what the ancients did with their sick, exposing them in the steps of the temple, so that everyone who came to invoke the divinity might offer them a remedy. And to this end, I will strive to reproduce the condition faithfully without discrimination. I will raise a part of the veil that covers the evil, sacrificing to truth everything, even vanity itself, since as thy son I am conscious that I also suffer from thy defects and weaknesses, which directly points out that the Philippines suffers from a deep, painful social cancer caused by injustice and oppression. Rizal aims to expose this reality truthfully, like how the ancients displayed the sick for possible remedies. He acknowledged his own connection to these flaws as a Filipino and sacrifices personal pride for the sake of truth and national healing. Now, we are going to the last part of my report, the synopsis of the NOLI. The novel Noli Me Tangere contains 63 chapters and an epilogue. It begins with a reception given by Capitan Tiago, Santiago de los Santos, at his house in Calle Analog, now Juan Luna Street. On the last day of October, this reception or dinner was given in honor of Crisostomo Ibarra, a young and rich Filipino who had just returned after 7 years of study in Europe. Ibarra was the only son of Don Rafael Ibarra, friend of Capitan Tiago, and a fiancé of beautiful Maria Clara, supposed daughter of Capitan Tiago. Among the guests during the reception were Padre Damaso, a Franciscan friar who had been parish priest of San Diego, Calamba, Ibarra's native town for 20 years, Padre Sibilia, a young Dominican parish priest of Binondo, Senor Guevara, an elderly and kind lieutenant of the Guardia Civil, Don Tiburcio de Espadanya, a bogus Spanish physician lame, and Henpic, husband of Doña Victorina, and several ladies. Ibarra, upon his arrival, produced a favorable impression among the guests, except Padre Damaso, who was rude to him. In accordance with the German custom, he introduced himself to the ladies. During the dinner, the conversation centered on Ibarra's studies and travels abroad. Padre Damaso was in bad mood because he got a bony neck and hard wing of the chicken tinola. He tried to discredit Ibarra's remarks. After dinner, Ibarra left Capitan Tiago's house to return to his hotel. On the way, the kind Lieutenant Guevara told him the sad story of his father's death in San Diego. Don Rafael, his father, was a rich and brave man. He defended a helpless boy from the brutality of an illiterate Spanish tax collector, pushing the latter and accidentally killing him. He was thrown in prison, where he died unhappily. He was buried in consecrated ground, but his enemies, accusing him of being a heretic, his body removed from the cemetery. On hearing his father's sad story, Ibarra thanked the kind Spanish lieutenant and vowed to find out the truth about his father's death. The following morning, he visited Maria Clara, his childhood sweetheart. Maria Clara teasingly said that he had forgotten her because the girls in Germany were beautiful. Ibarra replied that he had never forgotten her. After the romantic reunion with Maria Clara, Ibarra went to San Diego to visit his father's grave. It was All Saints' Day. At the cemetery, the grave digger told Ibarra that the corpse of Don Rafael was removed by order of the parish priest to be buried in the Chinese cemetery. But the corpse was heavy and it was a dark rainy night, so that he, the grave digger, simply threw the corpse into the lake. Ibarra was angered by the grave digger's story. He left the cemetery. On the way, he met Padre Salve, Franciscan parish priest of San Diego. In a flash, Ibarra pounced on the priest, demanding redress for desecrating his father's mortal remains. Padre Salve told him that he had nothing to do with it, for he was not the parish priest at the time of Don Rafael's death. It was Padre Damaso, his predecessor, who was responsible for it. Convinced of Padre Salve's innocence, Ibarra went away. In his town, Ibarra met several interesting people, such as the wise old man Tasio the Sage, whose ideas were too advanced for his times, so that the people who could not understand him called him Tasio the Lunatic. The progressive school teacher, who complained to Ibarra that the children were losing interest in their studies because of the lack of proper schoolhouse and the discouraging attitude of the parish priest towards the teaching of Spanish and the use of modern methods of pedagogy. The spineless Gobernador Silio, who catered to wishes of the Spanish parish priest. Don Lino, the teniente mayor and the leader of the liberal faction in the town. Don Melchor, the captain of the Cuadrilleros town police, and the former Gobernador Silios, who were prominent citizens, Don Basilio and Don Valentin. A most tragic story in the novel is the tale of Sisa, who was formerly a rich girl but became poor because she married a gambler, and a wastrel at that. She became crazy because she lost her two boys, Basilio and Crispin, the only joys of her wrecked life. These boys were sacristanes, sextons, in the church, working for a small wage. They support their poor mother Crispin. The younger of two brothers was accused by the brutal sacristan mayor, or the chief sexton, of stealing the money of the priest. He was tortured in the convent and died. Basilio, with his brother's dying cries ringing in his ears, escaped. When the two boys did not return home, Sisa looked for them everywhere. And, in her great sorrow, she became mad. Capitan Tiago, Maria Clara, and Aunt Isabel, Capitan Tiago's cousin who took care of Maria Clara after her mother's death, arrived in San Diego. Ibarra and his friends gave a picnic in the lake. Among those present in this picnic were Maria Clara and her four girlfriends, the Merry Sinang, the grave Victoria, the beautiful Iday, and the thoughtful Neneng. Aunt Isabel, chaperon of Maria Clara, Capitana Tika, mother of Sinang, and then foster sister of Maria Clara, Albino, the ex-theological student who was in love with Sinang, and Ibarra and his friends. One of both men was a strong, silent peasant youth named Ilyas. An incident of the picnic was the saving of Ilyas' life by Ibarra. Ilyas bravely grappled with a crocodile which was caught in the fish coral. But the crocodile struggled furiously so that Ilyas could not subdue it. Ibarra jumped in the water and killed the crocodile, thereby saving Ilyas. Another incident which preceded the above mentioned near tragic crocodile incident was the rendering of three beautiful songs by Maria Clara, who had a sweet voice. Upon the insistent request of her friends, she played the harp and sang. So these are the lyrics of the song of Maria Clara.
Sweets are the hours in one's native land, where all is dear, the sunbeams bless. Life-giving breezes sweep the strand, and death is softened by love's cares. Warm kisses play on mother's hips, on her fond, tender breast awakening. When round her neck the soft arm slips, and bright eyes smile, all love partaking. Sweet is that for one's native land, where all is dear, the sunbeams bless. Death is the breeze that sweeps the strand, without a mother, home, or love scarce. The Maria Clara Songs is a heartfelt poem by Jose Rizal. The character Maria Clara sings this piece, expressing deep love for her homeland and the bittersweet emotions of life and death. The poem beautifully captures the essence of Filipino identity during the Spanish colonial period, reflecting themes of patriotism and personal longing.
This song symbolizes loves for one's country and the pain of separation. This will be the end of my discussion. I hope you learned something from me. My partner, Mr. Rasa, will be continuing the story of the novel. Once again, this is Jehana S. Mangcao, your first reporter of the Chapter 8.